Have you ever felt suddenly sad, angry, or irritated without knowing why? One moment you are fine, laughing with friends or focused on work, and the next moment your mood completely changes. You feel anxious or frustrated or deeply sad and you have no idea where it came from. It feels completely random, like your emotions are just happening to you with no rhyme or reason. But here is what science says: mood swings almost never happen without a reason. They feel random because the reasons are invisible, happening beneath your conscious awareness in your brain chemistry, your hormones, your thoughts, and hidden triggers you are not even noticing. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why your mood changes seemingly out of nowhere, what is actually happening inside your brain and body when it happens, and most importantly, what you can do about it. So let me take you on a journey into the fascinating science of mood and emotion, and show you that your feelings are not as mysterious or uncontrollable as they seem. Let us start with a fundamental truth that changes everything. Your brain is constantly changing your mood, and it is doing this whether you are aware of it or not. Mood is not something that just happens to you from the outside. It is actively constructed moment by different regions of your brain working together. And understanding which parts of your brain are involved helps explain why moods can shift so quickly and so dramatically. There are several key brain areas that play critical roles in your emotional state. The amygdala is your emotional detection center. It is constantly scanning for anything that might be emotionally significant, particularly threats or dangers. When the amygdala detects something it interprets as threatening, even if that threat is just a memory or a thought or an imagined scenario, it triggers an emotional response. This can shift your mood instantly from calm to anxious or from happy to fearful. Then there is the prefrontal cortex, which is located right behind your forehead. This is your brain's control center for emotions. It is supposed to regulate and modulate the emotional signals coming from the amygdala. It helps you think rationally about situations, put things in perspective, and calm down when you are upset. But here is the problem. The prefrontal cortex is easily overwhelmed. When you are stressed, sleep-deprived, or emotionally activated, the prefrontal cortex becomes less effective at controlling your emotions. This is why you might snap at someone when you are tired or feel completely overwhelmed by something small when you are already stressed. Your emotional control center has gone offline. The hippocampus is another critical player. This region is involved in memory and it links your current emotions with past experiences. If something in your present reminds your hippocampus of a past emotional experience, even if you are not consciously aware of the connection, it can trigger the same emotional state you felt before. This is why certain smells, songs, places, or even types of weather can suddenly shift your mood. Your brain is connecting the present moment with an emotional memory. And finally, the hypothalamus regulates your hormones and your stress response. When your hypothalamus detects stress or threat, it activates your HPA axis, which releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This directly affects your mood, making you feel more anxious, irritable, or on edge. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett has done groundbreaking research showing that emotions are not just reactions to what happens to you. They are actually constructed by your brain based on predictions. Your brain is constantly trying to predict what is going to happen next based on past experiences, current sensations in your body, and the context you are in. And these predictions shape your emotional experience. This means your brain can change your mood even when nothing obvious is happening externally. Your brain might predict that a situation is going to be stressful based on similar past situations, and it will generate a stressed mood before anything has actually gone wrong. Or it might interpret normal physical sensations like hunger or fatigue as emotional distress. Your brain is essentially creating your emotional reality moment by moment, and much of this process is happening beneath your conscious awareness. This is why mood swings can feel so random. The construction is happening automatically, but the brain regions are only part of the story. Your mood is also heavily influenced by brain chemicals called neurotransmitters, and small changes in these chemicals can create significant shifts in how you feel. Let me walk you through the most important ones. Serotonin is often called the mood stabilizer. It helps regulate your overall emotional baseline. When serotonin levels are adequate, you tend to feel more emotionally stable, calm, and content. But when serotonin is low, you are more vulnerable to irritability, sadness, and mood swings. Things that normally would not bother you suddenly feel overwhelming. Dopamine is your motivation and pleasure chemical. It drives you to pursue goals and rewards. And it creates feelings of satisfaction and enjoyment when you achieve them. But dopamine is also involved in mood regulation. Too little dopamine and you feel unmotivated, flat, and anhedonic, which means unable to experience pleasure. Too much or too rapid fluctuations and you might feel restless or anxious. Norepinephrine is involved in alertness and your stress response. It helps you pay attention and react quickly to important situations. But when norepinephrine is dysregulated, it can create feelings of anxiety, hyperarousal, and emotional reactivity. And then there is cortisol, your primary stress hormone. Cortisol is not technically a neurotransmitter but a hormone, but it profoundly affects your brain and mood. According to research discussed by neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, even small changes in these neurochemicals can shift your emotional state significantly. Here is an example of how this works. Imagine you wake up one morning and for no clear reason you feel irritable and sad. You did not have a bad dream that you remember, but you feel off. What might be happening is that your serotonin levels are lower than usual, perhaps because you did not sleep well or because of what you ate yesterday or just natural fluctuation. This chemical change in your brain is creating the emotional experience of sadness and irritability, even though nothing in your external life has changed. Or maybe your cortisol is elevated because of chronic stress you have been under, and now your baseline mood is more anxious and reactive. It is neurochemical. But because you cannot see or feel serotonin or cortisol levels, it feels like your mood just changed for no reason. Now let us talk about hidden psychological triggers, because many mood swings feel random because the triggers are subconscious. You are not aware of what set off the emotional shift. There are several common hidden causes. First, unresolved emotions. Emotions that you have not fully processed or expressed do not just disappear. They get stored in your body and mind, and they can surface later as mood swings. Maybe you felt hurt by something someone said last week, but you pushed it down and did not deal with it. That unresolved hurt is still there, and it might surface as irritability or sadness days later when something unrelated happens that vaguely reminds you of it. Second, negative self-talk. The running commentary in your mind, the things you tell yourself about yourself and your life, this has enormous power over your mood. And much of this self-talk is so automatic and habitual that you do not even notice it anymore. But if your internal dialogue is consistently critical, pessimistic, or harsh, it is going to create negative mood states. Psychologist Ethan Kross, who studies inner dialogue, has found that the way you talk to yourself strongly affects your emotional state. Third, rumination, which is repetitive thinking about problems, regrets, or worries. When you ruminate, you are essentially practicing feeling bad. You are repeatedly activating the neural pathways associated with negative emotions, which keeps your mood in a negative state or causes it to drop suddenly when something triggers the rumination cycle. Fourth, stress accumulation. Stress builds up over time like water filling a bucket. Each individual stressor might seem small and manageable, but when you have accumulated a lot of stress without adequate recovery, even a tiny additional stressor can cause the bucket to overflow, manifesting as a sudden mood swing. And fifth, past memories. Your brain stores emotional memories, and these can be triggered by things in your present environment that you might not consciously notice. A certain tone of voice, a type of interaction, a feeling in your body, these can activate old emotional memories, and suddenly you are feeling the emotion from the past without understanding why. Now let me explain cognitive distortions, because certain thinking patterns can create sudden, emotional changes and most people are completely unaware they are doing this. These distortions were extensively studied by Aaron T. Beck, who founded cognitive therapy. Cognitive distortions are systematic errors in thinking that generate negative emotions. Let me give you the most common ones. Overthinking small problems. You take something minor and analyze it obsessively until it feels huge. Someone does not respond to your text and instead of thinking they are busy, you spend 2 hours thinking about all the reasons they might be upset with you, all the things you might have done wrong, whether the relationship is ending. Your thinking has turned a neutral event into an emotional crisis. Imagining worst-case scenarios, which is catastrophizing. Your mind jumps to the most extreme negative outcome and treats it as likely or inevitable. You make a small mistake at work, and immediately your brain says you are going to get fired, you will not be able to pay rent, you will end up homeless. This catastrophic thinking generates intense anxiety and shifts your mood dramatically. Mind reading, which is assuming you know what others are thinking about you, and it is always negative. Someone looks at you briefly and you immediately think they are judging you or thinking you are stupid or unattractive. You have no evidence for this, but the assumption creates real emotional distress. The critical thing to understand is that your brain can create emotional reactions to thoughts that are not even true. These cognitive distortions are interpretations, not facts. But your brain and body react to them as if they are real threats. So a distorted thought generates a genuine emotional and physiological response. And suddenly your mood has changed based on something that was only happening in your mind. This is incredibly important to understand, because it means that a significant portion of your mood swings are actually being created by your own thinking patterns, and those patterns can be changed once you learn to recognize them. But brain chemistry and thoughts are not the only factors. Hormonal fluctuations can dramatically affect mood. And for many people, this is the primary driver of their mood variability. Let me walk you through the key hormones. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Through the key hormones, making you more irritable, anxious, and prone to mood swings. Thyroid hormones regulate your metabolism and energy levels. And thyroid dysfunction can cause significant mood symptoms. Hypothyroidism, when your thyroid is underactive, often causes depression, fatigue, and emotional flatness. Estrogen and testosterone, the sex hormones, both influence mood. Fluctuations in these hormones during menstrual cycles, pregnancy, postpartum, premenopause, and menopause can cause significant mood changes. Many women experience premenstrual syndrome where hormonal shifts in the week before menstruation cause irritability, sadness, or anxiety. And melatonin, which regulates your sleep-wake cycle, also affects mood. These hormonal changes can cause mood swings in specific conditions. Premenstrual syndrome affects many menstruating people and involves hormonal fluctuations that directly impact neurotransmitter function in the brain, particularly serotonin. Thyroid disease, whether hypo or hyper, commonly includes mood symptoms as part of the disorder, and treating the thyroid often resolves the mood issues. The key point is that these hormonal influences on mood are biological, not psychological. Now let us talk about sleep and circadian rhythm, because sleep plays an absolutely enormous role in emotional regulation, and most people dramatically underestimate this. Lack of sleep can cause irritability, emotional sensitivity, and sudden mood changes. And this is not just about feeling tired. Sleep deprivation has specific effects on your brain's emotional systems. Research shows that sleep affects the brain's ability to control emotions through the prefrontal cortex. When you are sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, that rational control center, functions less effectively. At the same time, your amygdala, the emotional reactivity center, becomes more active. What this means practically is that when you have not slept enough, your brain reacts more emotionally to everything. Small frustrations feel huge. Neutral comments feel like attacks. You cry more easily or get angry more quickly. Your emotional regulation system is impaired. And because most people do not connect their mood swings to their sleep quality, then there is stress and what happens to your brain when you live under chronic stress. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, author of Why Zebras Do Not Get Ulcers, has done extensive research on stress and its effects on the brain and body. He explains that chronic stress keeps your brain in survival mode. When you experience acute stress, your body activates the fight or flight response. Cortisol and adrenaline are released, your heart rate increases, your attention narrows, and your body prepares for action. This is adaptive for short-term threats. But when stress is chronic, when you are living with ongoing work pressure, long-term stress raises cortisol levels chronically, and high cortisol disrupts emotional balance. This can lead to irritability, anxiety, and sudden mood. Additionally, chronic stress can actually change brain structure over time, shrinking the hippocampus and affecting the prefrontal cortex, both of which are critical for emotional regulation. So chronic stress does not just make you feel stressed. It fundamentally changes how your brain processes and regulates emotion, making you more vulnerable to mood swings. And then we need to talk about lifestyle factors. Changes. Poor diet affects mood in multiple ways. Your brain requires specific nutrients to produce neurotransmitters, dopamine, and other mood-regulating chemicals. Additionally, blood sugar fluctuations from eating high sugar or high refined carb foods cause energy and mood crashes. But an hour later, when your blood sugar crashes, you feel irritable and low. Excess caffeine stimulates your nervous system, and while moderate amounts can improve mood and alertness, too much caffeine or caffeine consumed late in the day can create anxiety, jitteriness, and interfere with sleep, all of which affect mood. Social media overload creates constant social comparison, FOMO, and information overwhelm, all of which can shift mood negatively. You might feel fine until you scroll through social media and see everyone else seemingly living better lives, and suddenly you feel inadequate or left out. Lack of physical activity is strongly linked to mood problems. Exercise has direct effects on neurotransmitter production, stress hormone regulation, and brain health. And isolation, lack of meaningful social connection, is one of the strongest predictors of poor emotional health. Humans are social creatures, and we need connection. When that need is unmet, mood suffers. So now that we have covered all these factors, let me explain why mood swings feel so random. They feel random because many triggers are subconscious. You are not aware that a certain smell just reminded your hippocampus of a sad memory, or that your internal dialogue has been particularly harsh today, or that your serotonin is low because you did not sleep well. Brain chemistry changes constantly throughout the day based on what you eat, how you sleep, your stress levels, and natural rhythms. Hormones fluctuate throughout the day and across longer cycles. Stress accumulates silently. You might not consciously register each small stressor, but your nervous system is tracking them, and when the accumulation reaches a threshold, you have a mood swing. Your emotional state is the result of many invisible processes happening inside your brain and body. You are seeing the output, the mood, but you are not seeing all the inputs that created it. And that is what makes it feel random and mysterious. But I need to address something important. Sometimes mood swings are not just about the factors we have discussed. Sometimes they are part of mental health conditions that require professional treatment. Depression often involves mood variability, not just persistent sadness. People with depression might have days where they feel a bit better and days where they feel much worse. And these shifts can feel unpredictable. Involves more extreme mood swings between depressive episodes and manic or hypomanic episodes. These mood changes are more intense and persistent than the everyday mood fluctuations we have been discussing. If your mood swings are severe, if they are significantly impacting your functioning, your relationships, your work, or if they involve thoughts of self-harm, you need to talk to a mental health professional. What I am describing in this video is the normal variability of human mood and the factors that influence it. But there is a point where mood instability crosses into the territory of a disorder that needs treatment. So let me bring all of this together with a final insight. They are not evidence that you are broken or too sensitive or not in control of yourself. They are signals from your brain and body. Your mood is information. When your mood shifts, your brain and body are telling you something. Maybe they are telling you that you are not getting enough sleep. Maybe they are signaling that you have unresolved stress or emotions. Maybe they are indicating that your thoughts have become distorted or that your diet is not supporting your brain chemistry. Maybe they are showing you that you need more connection or movement or rest. Understanding the psychology, the brain chemistry, the hormones, and the habits behind emotions helps you manage them better. Instead of feeling helpless when your mood changes, you can start investigating. What might be contributing to this? Have I been isolated? When you understand your mind and body, your emotions stop feeling mysterious. You start working with your biology instead of against it. You start recognizing patterns. You start making changes that stabilize your mood over time. Because you are a human with a complex brain and body operating in a complex world, you can absolutely reduce the frequency and intensity of mood swings. You can develop emotional resilience. You can build a life that supports stable mood. If this video helped you understand your moods better, please share it because millions of people are struggling with mood swings and blaming themselves. And remember, your emotions are not random, they are signals. Listen to them. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video.